right, so I am excited for this conversation today. And Kaya, I am so excited to be in community with you. We are not going to do introductions because everyone has access to Kaya's bio. But I do want folks to get a window into who you are and your leadership. So we're going to do a lightning round type format for 4 minutes, and we're just going to see how many questions we can get to in that 4 minutes.
Okay.
All right. So the first question, what's one thing people don't know from reading your bio but should?
I throw a mean party.
Okay.
I play as hard as I work. How about that? I'll clean it up. I play as hard as I work.
So I'm going to ask this question. I'm going to throw it in. Pac or Biggie when at the party?
Biggie, no two ways about it. I'm from New York.
So we're going to continue with this conversation, even though I would have preferred a different response.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. What are you currently reading?
I'm reading a book called You Are Your Best Thing. I think that's the name of it.
All right.
It's a bunch of essays by African-American writers about vulnerability, and it's a collection that's curated by Tarana Burke and Brene Brown.
Okay, I love it. What's the biggest learning experience you've had?
DC Public Schools, hands down.
All right, and that's full stop period on that one. What song can you listen to on repeat?
Lots of songs.
Okay.
Stevie Wonder,
Okay.
Earth, Wind and Fire,
Okay.
Special Ed,
Okay.
Soca, I don't know, all kinds of things.
I love it, I love it. What are you most afraid of or tired of?
Not afraid of too much. Tired of us not really figuring out, we know how to make all kids successful.
Okay.
We just lack the will to do it. We lack the commitment to do it. And I'm tired of it. We spend a lot of money. We spend a lot of time. There are lots of people making a lot of money, and kids are still not learning. And I think it's a travesty, and I'm tired of it.
I love it. All right. What's inspiring you right now in your life?
What is inspiring me? I am watching how parents are figuring it out. They're not relying on systems. They're not relying on the folks who are supposed to provide because provision has not happened. And I see parents and communities coming together in really creative ways to figure out how to make it happen for their kids. I'm inspired by the nonprofit sector and how it has stepped up in the complete and utter failure of most of our institutions. And ultimately, I think the way big problems get solved is by people acting collectively, and it takes literally everybody in a community. And I feel like this is the first time that we're really seeing that effectuated. Okay. So that's inspiring to me.
Okay, all right. What's one thing you wish all students knew growing up?
Okay, this might take a little bit more than
that.
Okay, so when I was little, right, every morning before we left the house, my grandmother said 3 things to me.
Okay.
She said, we said the 23rd Psalm on our way out the door to make sure that there was Jesus' protection over us as we went out. Yeah. We love Jesus.
Yes.
The second thing she said was Black is beautiful, because it was the 70s. And so I had a deep sense of my beauty and my place in the world. And she would say, you are the smartest little girl that I've ever seen before. I think you could be the president of the United States. And I didn't know that there hadn't been a woman president or a Black president, but I literally thought that I could be the president of the United States. And so I wish every child had somebody who is speaking that kind of positivity into their lives. I wish every child knew that they were beautiful, that there was a place in the world, that there's a God who's looking out for them, that there's a community that supports them, because that's part of the reason why I am who I am.
I love it. I love it. 10 years from now, what's the vision of how the experience and outcomes for students will be transformed?
Girl, I don't know. Listen, I feel like that's the big question. Where do we go from here? What's the vision? I'm excited about the fact that this is a time of real innovation, right? The brakes are off. People are willing to do lots of different things. And so my hope is that we'll imagine some things that we haven't imagined before. If I can tell you right now what it should look like 10 years from now, then we're not doing it right? It should be something beyond what is in our current viewpoint. So I don't know. I hope that it's something radically different than what we currently have.
I love it. All right. So we're going to dig in. And today we're really talking about what it means for us to just transform how we orient towards what success is for students. And the name of your organization is is Reconstruction, and that word means the act or process of rebuilding, repairing, or restoring something. Can you just share with us what the headlines are of what Reconstruction is seeking to do?
Yeah, so Reconstruction is seeking to do two things: rebuild the Black community by rebuilding strong Black children and Black families. We hearken to the period post-emancipation, the 12 years after the Civil War, when Black people were amongst our most prosperous in the United States, where we owned 24% of farmland, where we started 37 HBCUs, where we founded 5,000 community schools, where we built our own towns, incorporated our own banks, coming right out of slavery, right? Being self-reliant and self-responsible, we took care of each other and took care of our own in 12 years, right? And what we hope to re-inspire is by teaching children and families Black history, Black culture, Black joy, Black resilience, giving them access to topics that you don't usually learn in school, that they will be different, that they will walk differently in the world, that they will be differently successful in school, that they will have agency, in the very same way that, Jewish people send their kids to Hebrew school or Chinese people send their kids to Chinese school, building young people with strong identities, with confidence, with a sense of where they belong in history, I think has everything to do with kids' academic success and ultimately their success in life.
And how does that connect to what the transformation needs to look like based on what our current construct of success is?
So, I think the transformation, especially around how we measure success for kids, has to be much more holistic, right? Everybody is clear that kids are not just reading and math scores.
Yes.
And I think one of the benefits of the pandemic is that parents have actually articulated that they are more concerned at this point about their kids' well-being, their kids' mental health, their kids' sense of self, and that opens doors for schools and people who educate children. I'm gonna not say schools, I'm gonna say for people who educate children to do much more, to do many different things than what we've been doing. The incentives are all set up around test scores and around whatever. And let me be very clear. I believe, I just heard Arnie Duncan say on the stage before, I believe we should be assessing kids. I absolutely do. I believe in rigorous academics. I believe in math and reading scores, but not just math and reading, right? At DCPS, I wanted every kid to play an instrument, to play a sport, to master a foreign language. Oh yeah, for sure, to be academically prepared, to go on an international trip, right? These are the things that I want for my kids, so these are the things that I wanted for the 50,000 kids that I was responsible for in DCPS. I wasn't rewarded for that, I wasn't budgeted for that, and so I had to find a way to provide the kind of education that I wanted to provide to our kids beyond what was given to me in the budget. I think right now we have the opportunity now to include a bunch of different things that are important to kids' success that we haven't been able to pay attention to before.
That's helpful. And so from what I understand, the program is actually supplemental, right, to what's happening in the school door. And so I'm going to ask you this question. I'm just going to go straight there. How do you respond to the push, right, that you're creating damage by framing what you're taking on and all of its importance as supplemental versus demanding that it be fully integrated into the curriculum? So in the same way that white history and white mannerisms and ways of being are consciously and unconsciously the de facto way that we teach and lead our kids.
Yeah, so let me say this very clearly.
Okay.
I chose to do this outside of the school system.
Okay.
For a couple of reasons. Number one, I wanted the freedom to teach Black children what I think is important without having to legislate against 50 different state standards or various school boards. What we are living right now with this CRT stuff is exactly what I was worried about. And so doing it outside of school supplementally allows me to do it on my own terms. Secondly, who teaches children their history and their culture is really, really important.
Yes.
And everybody can't teach Black children Black history. Okay?
There it is.
We've had enough hot mic episodes in the last year alone where you've heard people who are charged with the growing of young black minds say terrible things about children and parents. And what I won't do is create curriculum that is positive and affirming and that seeks to raise our kids up and put it in the hands of people who don't believe in black kids. And so having control over who is teaching was really important. The supplemental piece, we made it supplemental because, number one, I think it complements what's happening in school. Okay. And I don't want to fight. School is 180 days, 7.5 hours a day, and there's 9 zillion things that you got to pack into that curriculum. Yes. I know, I did it. Yeah. And in fact, we did it culturally responsively, but I could only get so much in, right, during that time. And here, I can spend weeks on any topic that I want to. Yes. Now, for the, I dare somebody to say that what we're doing is damaging. Right. I know for sure, I've had conversations with black families who are like, we don't want to have to do this after school. Yes. We want to do this in school because we think this is important. I'm down with that, but I'm not trying to fight that battle because it will take me 25 years to get this in schools the way I want it to be. Yeah. In fact, sometimes you have to do it outside, show people what's happening. I have families who see tremendous differences in their kids' academic success after just a few weeks of taking a Reconstruction course, and teachers are saying, what's going on with so-and-so? What's going on with, I want you to come to me and ask me what we're doing. I'm not trying to push into schools. I know how that thing works. It doesn't turn out well.
I appreciate that. I want to go back to something you said about the importance of who are teaching our babies. Talk to me about what you believe the role of, you already know. You can see it in my eyes. What's the role of white leaders and white educators in this space? Or is there a role when you think about what you're taking on with Reconstruction?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's an important role for white educators and white leaders to play. Mm-hmm. First of all, we have white tutors at Reconstruction. We have some, for us, who's teaching our kids is not you have to be black. Mm-hmm. It is you have to be deeply steeped in the history and culture. It is you have to love black children and want to create a space of belonging for them. And we found white educators who are able to do that, willing to do that, and so they're on the team. Yeah. And the majority of our folks look like the kids that we serve, and that actually means something. Parents are looking for that. But one of the things that makes Reconstruction a little bit different from Hebrew school or Chinese school is we're not just for black students and families, we're open to everybody. And so if white families or Asian families or Latino families want to come and learn about our history and our culture, then they are welcome. And so it's important for us to have a diverse team of people teaching. At the same time, I think it's very important for white leaders in the education space to recognize the importance of culturally relevant and culturally competent curriculum. Yeah. When kids see, there's lots of research that says this, but when kids see themselves reflected in what they are learning, they are more deeply engaged, they are more motivated, academic success comes more easily. And so if you are teaching black kids as a white educator, then this is important to you because it's important for your young people's success. And so I think it's important for white educators, and we work with schools and school districts and community-based organizations and churches and whatnot, all across the country, and we have numerous white leaders who are seeking out our services, who are funding scholarships for kids to participate in Reconstruction, who are supportive. It's going to take all of us, right? But the way I think about the work that we're doing is if our kids are going to be part of a diverse society, community, then each of our kids has to come with strength and conviction and courage so that they can engage with other folks. I'm seeking to build strong black children so that they can play on the same playing field with everybody else who they come in contact with. Yeah.
And how do you respond to folks to say, I hear you say that we are living in a multicultural world and we need to make sure that our kids are strong and they know themselves, they know their history, and they can stand proud and firm in that? How do you respond to folks who say, well, it's incongruent with you solely focusing on black history? If you believe that, Kaya, why aren't you focusing on the history of everyone in the BIPOC community?
That's
more
school's
holistic
job, right? Or somebody else's else's job.
Yeah.
I get to do what I want to do,
Here it is.
right? That's why I started my own company. Like, we
Yeah.
each get to spend our time in the way that we think has the most impact. I've done that. For 10 years, I was in leadership at DC Public Schools, making sure that everybody that we serve got a high quality education, and making sure that all of our kids saw both mirrors, saw themselves in their curriculum, and windows out to other communities. Now what I choose to do with my time is to focus deeply on the community that I come from and the community that I serve, where I see an acute need that I think I'm able to fill. So everybody gets to decide where they are going to have the most impact. I think at this particular moment where I am spending my time focused on the Black community and Black kids, that this is what I want to do, so that's what I'm going to do.
I love it. I love it. So you and I, we had a brief conversation about like what success means for Reconstruction. Talk to me about the first interaction you've had with a student coming out of an experience with Reconstruction. What were some of the things that you noticed in their reflections about engaging with the curriculum, the program, the tutors, that this has stayed with you?
Yeah, so I mean, it's one thing to like have an idea of what you think is going to happen when kids engage with this stuff. I have some track record having seen what we did in DC Public Schools with curriculum and seeing kids engage deeply when they saw themselves and their communities represented. But I'll tell you a story about a little boy named Malik. Malik is my friend Courtney's son, and Malik is maybe one of the toughest, like, he is the most recalcitrant kid I've ever met in my life. Malik does not like anything. He doesn't like you, he doesn't like me. Malik doesn't like chairs, he doesn't like lights, he doesn't like school, Malik don't like nothing. And Malik is 10, especially does not like Zoom school, won't put his camera on, doesn't participate, and he was struggling with math. And so his mom put him in a Reconstruction math class called HBCU Sports. And so they are looking, it's all of the 5th grade math concepts, but they are calculating sports statistics for a variety of HBCU football teams. And so he's learning about HBCUs, he's learning positive and negative integers, he's calculating sports statistics, and he's all in, right? Like, they are late for everything. But Malik is like, Ma, come on, we gotta go. Like, I gotta be on time for Reconstruction. And you know, it's a small group, it's 6 to 10 kids with a tutor in real time. And there's a sense of community. And you know, there's no bells and whistles, there's no gamification or animation. It's just good content, good teaching in a Zoom room. And Malik is all into it. And a couple weeks later, after just a few weeks of Reconstruction classes, Malik realizes that in his regular class, he actually now understands the math that he had been struggling with, right? And so now his camera's on, and now he's raising his hand, and he's participating. And my friend Courtney is on the phone crying, I don't know what you did. I don't know, how do we do more of this, right? She's super excited. And so Malik finishes the math class, and she thinks that he's gonna take the next math class, and he's like, I'm taking the cooking class. She's like, wait, what? You like to cook? He's like, I think I'd like to try cooking. And so we have a class called Cooking for the Soul, where kids learn 5 soul food dishes. They learn the history of the dish, and then they learn how to cook the dish with a chef from New Orleans. And Malik signed them up for Cooking for the Soul. And so some Saturday morning, Courtney calls me up in April, and I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm cooking black-eyed peas and rice. And I was like, in April? Like, what? Because you on a Saturday morning? Because she's like, no, we are taking the Cooking for the Soul class. And so Malik has blossomed. Malik is exploring new passions. Malik is participating in school because he just had this short experience with Reconstruction. And that's what we hear from parents over and over and over again. I think the combination of what our kids say, so our average student satisfaction rating is a 4.83 out of 5, right? And what our kids say is they love the content because it's not stuff that they are regularly learning in school. They love their reconstructor, which is what we call our tutors. Many of them are recent college graduates or current college students, and they're kind of like cool, hip, older brother, older sister kind of people. And they love being in conversation with kids from all around the country. One of the things that we're able to do, because it's virtual, is we put kids from New Orleans with kids from Jackson, Mississippi, with kids from Baltimore, kids are in conversations with kids from all over the country. And that is also important because it builds social capital, it starts to network kids and network families. In fact, we have parents now who are like, well, wait, I want to take Black Shakespeare, or wait, I want to be part of one of the book clubs. And so we just ran a book club with a bunch of parents from all around the country on Ta-Nehisi Coates' Between the World and Me, some of whom had read it before, some of whom had not, but they were so appreciative to be in conversation with other Black parents from around the country at this particular moment about what they are telling their kids to make of what's going on in America. And so we've got communities now who are taking classes together, and that's the reconstruction part, right?
I love it. So what's your biggest reflection on what it takes to be serious about transforming systems and constructs and habits and just outdated ways of being and thinking?
So I think I see lots of faces in the room who are about systems transformation. I think what I've learned on my leadership journey is that these are complex systems for a reason. One of the things that I feel like the education reform movement totally underestimated about schools and school districts is they are complex systems. And we just thought, well, we're smarter and we're cuter and we got a little bit more money and we're gonna do this differently. We're not doing so much differently. Systems persist for a reason. And I don't think that we have studied systems enough. I don't think we understand systems enough. I don't think we attend to the multiple vectors that make systems go. Systems transformation, you have to be fighting on 5 or 6 fronts all at the same time. It has to be sequenced appropriately. It has to be coordinated right. You have to be going from the bottom up and from the top down at the same time. There's a political element. There's lots of political elements, the small p and the big P. And we want to take on one little piece and feel like, well, I got success in this thing over here. Well, hell, everybody has done one thing and gotten that success. But try doing that and this and that and this at the same time. And being successful on all of those fronts while still looking at the tsunami that is coming at you, right? And it's not for the faint of heart, right? I did systems work for 10 years, and it was honestly the most fun I have ever had. But it ain't for everybody, and everybody is not good at it. And I learned a ton. But I don't think we understand systems deeply enough to understand how to change systems. And ultimately, at some point, there's the question of when do you break the system?
Start over.
And what I will say about this particular moment and where we are, whether it's defund the police or whatever, there's a whole lot of motivation around tearing things down. I don't think that people have a clear sense of what to build on the other side, and I don't think that people have a clear sense of the devastation that happens when even these jacked up systems are torn apart, because these jacked up systems are still providing lots of kids and families with really important things. And so we point to all of the terrible things that systems are doing without recognizing that there are also some really good and important things that systems are doing. And I think COVID helped us understand that in ways that we never really bargained for. And so my hope is that people will think with a little bit more respect about systems transformation and recognize what systems do and what they do well. Recognize what all of this individualized stuff is never gonna do for folks, and then figure out where we go from there.
I want to pick up on that. So there are many forward-looking ideas just coming out of the pandemic. What seems most promising for the future of transforming learning and defining student success coming out of the pandemic?
I'll go back to what I said earlier, which is just that people are looking for a different definition of student success, right? Parents are looking for something different. I think the policymakers are open to something different. We have all this money to try new things. People think it's going to be high dosage tutoring, or people think it's going to be personalization, or like all of these things can go right or can go wrong, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm not betting on anything yet. I feel like we need this time of, just kind of trying a whole bunch of things and seeing what sticks. But I'm not betting on any one particular thing.
Okay. So as you think about your journey to bring Reconstruction to life, what have you learned about yourself in the process?
I think I've learned that there are a couple things that I'm really good at.
Okay.
And a lot of things that I'm really not good at.
All right.
And I am happy to allow people who are better at those things to do those things and to stick to the things that I'm good at. Mm-hmm. I think I've also learned in this journey to trust my instincts in ways that I hadn't before. I feel like I have good ideas. I don't know that everybody else thinks I have good ideas, but actually I have found that a lot of people think I have good ideas. And so people have invested in us. People have joined our movement. And so I recognize that somehow or another I have a way of helping people. What people who work at Reconstruction say, what many of our parents say is, this is what we've been waiting for, this is what we've been trying to articulate, and I feel like this isn't like my great big idea. I've heard lots of people talking over the years about what they wanted and what they needed, and maybe one of my superpowers is the ability to synthesize and pull people's ideas together and then help bring them to collective fruition. I think what I've also learned is, like, what I believe about collective action just rings truer and truer and truer. It takes lots of different people doing this work together if we're going to make big change. And I've also learned some super weird things about money. And I'll tell you some, I will say in this space, because some of you all are investors, I have never run a company before. I have never raised money outside of philanthropy for education, but I've run a frickin' school district, right, with 11,000 employees serving 50,000 families and, operating 15 different companies within that thing. And if I could tell you how many times people said to me, but you've never run anything before. Honest to God, right? And in fact, there's a woman who, she's a venture capitalist, and she turns around companies. She has turned around 2 low-performing athletic companies, and she said to me, I think your idea is great, but I just don't think you have experience. And I said, well, I think I have the same experience you do, lady, right? Like, you took a failing company and you figured out what worked, you figured out what didn't work, you hired new people, you negotiated new contracts, right? I did the same thing at DC Public Schools, and she said, well, that's different. And I was like, right, that was for 50,000 kids. All I'm trying to do is take a few kids and put them through some cultural classes, and you don't think I can do that? Okay. If I had $1 for every venture capitalist who told me I had not run anything before, or who told me, well, if it was a nonprofit, I would fund it. But because it's a for-profit, I will not fund it. And I found that to be really, really interesting. Yeah. We set this up as a for-profit because I don't want to spend my days begging people to do the things that I want to do with kids. I set this up as a for-profit company because I believe I have a product that people will pay for. Yeah. And when other people have products that people pay for, we call that capitalism. But when I have a product that I think people will pay for, I'm supposed to be a nonprofit and beg for people to fund me to do my thing. And what I will tell you is, and this was my experience at DC Public Schools too, there were people who wanted to fund Michelle Reed. They didn't want to fund me. All right, cool. Y'all are not the only people with money. And so what you figure out is whoever was tried and true and whoever thought you could rely on, sometimes those people you can, sometimes those people you can't, but there are other people out there. Yeah. And so I learned a lot about raising money in this. And we had one of the most successful Series A raises in ed tech history, and I take my little money, do my little thing on the side. I don't have to engage with all of the brouhaha, because the right people will find you. The right people who believe in your vision and who will do who want to do what you want to do will find you, and the money will come your way.
I love that. I love that. What is the charge that you have for all of us today? Right? And I know that's a huge question, right? But we have over 4,000 people here with us in San Diego. Tens of thousands of folks watching. No pressure, no pressure. But what is the charge that you want to leave with educators, with investors, with ed tech leaders, as they are going about pursuing this idea, right, that all learners, pre-K to grade, right, should have access to a quality education that changes their outcomes in life?
I was going to say get vaccinated and wear your masks, but...
They should do that too.
Right.
They should do that too.
Here's what I think. I mean, the way I've operated, the way I've done my work, is what I want for my children is what I want for the children that I serve. Far too often, we make very different decisions. Like, we love our children, right? The children that we birth, the children that live with us, children that are part of our families. We want the very best for them. And so when they are struggling readers, we get them a tutor, we take them to Kumon, we do whatever it takes. We don't say you can't go on the family trip. We don't stop piano lessons. We don't, stop lacrosse lessons, right? We give them everything they need and more. And yet and still, we treat the children that we serve very, very differently. Very differently. And so if what you are doing aligns with what you would do for your own kids, keep doing it and do it harder and do it faster and do it for more kids. And if it doesn't, stop what you're doing right now. Find yourself some friends who will tell you the truth about what kids need and what's happening. Be in community with families and ask families what they need and what they want. Families have vision for their children. They might not be able to provide economically. They might not know where to go to get what they need for their kids, but they know what they want for their kids. And when you engage parents and families in that visioning process, and when you align your work to what parents and families want, you find that they want the same thing that you want for your kids. And once we're all in agreement about the quality of education that we're going to provide for our kids, not just education in a school setting, but literally education all around, then we can Zoom. But at the end of the day, our problem right now is what we want to give to the kids we serve is subpar to what we want to give to our kids, to what people want to give their own kids. I will never forget walking through one of the top high schools in a particular city, where kids were walking on lines, and I will tell you that I had never seen that before. I didn't know why these 10th graders were walking on lines in the hallway. And where I watched people snapping at kids and doing all kinds of crazy things. And I said, this is the top high school in your town? Yeah. This is what why are the children walking on lines? And they said, well, we're teaching discipline, we're teaching routine, we're teaching da-da-da. And I said, yeah, but you pay for your kids. If your kid is a dancer, you pay for them to go to a school where they can dance down the hallway. Yeah. If your kid is an artist, you pay for them to go to a school where they can paint up the walls of the school and nobody cares because it's art. And you got these kids down here walking on lines like they're in jail. Not what we're doing. Right? And so our definition of best has got to change. Our definition of best has to be, this is why, people are like, oh, do you support vouchers? No, I don't support vouchers. I will support vouchers when they're $40,000 each, and they can buy the same education as Sidwell Friends in Washington, D.C., where I live, that other people get. That is what I'm supporting. I am supporting the kind of education that I want for my kids, that presidents want for their kids, that rich people want for their kids. That's what every single one of our kids deserve.
I love it. I love it. Yes, yes. Well, thank you, Kaya. This has been a wonderful conversation. I hope everyone in the audience and everyone watching has definitely had a chance to understand what it truly takes to transform how we orient towards success.
Thanks, Tiff.
All right. Thanks, Kaya.